Hello and welcome back. So these are the final outputs which came out of Modo. And we're now in Photoshop. This is a CS5, but to be honest, any sort of photo imaging software can do the same things we're going to do. Even the free stuff like GIMP is more than capable of doing what we're going to do today. I'm just going to turn off all these layers and just show you what came out. Okay, so there's the low dynamic range sort of diffuse main sort of render output, as you can see. See, it looks quite nice as it is. So we don't need to do much tweaking here. We've got most of the setup as we wanted it within Modo. So we're only adding some sort of nice touches and bringing out some of the details more than anything today. There's the HD there's the high dynamic range version if you want to use it. We won't be using that today, so I'm just going to delete it out. There's the alpha, showing you any transparencies. There's the depth render. That's going to come in handy if we want to add depth of field. Now, excuse me, the wee flu's kicking in, so I apologise. Things like depth of field on the camera and stuff can be added in Modo when you do the renders, using some of the camera effects. But to be honest, as long as you output a depth render output, then you can do all that sort of depth of field within Photoshop. So that gives you the option to do both scenes. If you render with depth of field from the camera, obviously it's there and you can't actually take it back. But if you do it this way, you could actually add it if you want. I'm not saying the actual the final output would be as good as rendering it actually in Modo, but it's good enough for what you'll probably need. There's the ambient occlusion layer. Now these normally get used more for like game development, like adding shadows and grime, but it does really bring out the colours, and you'll see when we start adding this into post how it just brings the whole image to life. So it's worth rendering out. It's quite a hit when you're rendering time-wise, but it's worth doing. These are any reflections if you want to boost, any diffuse if you want to boost, and subsurface if you want to boost. And there's the shadow density. We're not going to be using all these today. Okay, if we're going to go over channels, we're going to add some of these in. So this output layer here, I'm going to do just basically Control A to select the whole thing, and just hit Control C. I'm going to come over to channels here, and I'm going to come down here to create a new channel, and I'm just going to basically paste that into there. And I'm going to call this alpha. Okay, we'll go back over to layers and we can get rid of that now. Same with the depth here. I'm just going to do Control A, Control C, come over to the channels. We're going to add another channel here. I'm just going to paste that in there. I'm going to call this depth. Now this workflow I'm doing now is the same I do for any render. It's pretty much bog standard for me, so we're not sort of splitting the atom here. And to be honest, I'm not an expert in post by any means of the word, so please hunt around for extra tutorials for post if that's a big part of your workflow. We're not going to use any shadow density today. Okay, so we're left with these here, so I'm going to bring LDR down to the bottom. Okay, we're going to turn it on. The first thing we're going to do here is we're just going to basically bring this a bit more to life. So I'm going to come up to image. I'm going to do adjust levels, and this is basically the spectrum here. So this flat line here is basically wasted area. So I'm just going to bring that in a bit, and you'll see as I'm bringing it, it's lightening up the image. So I'm going to bring it just so it touches where it starts. I'm not going to move the middle at all. I'm going to leave that at 1 for now, and hit OK. Now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to add a filter to this, so I don't actually destruct the actual original image. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to convert it to a smart object. Now I'm going to come up to filter here. I'm going to come down to artistic. I'm going to go to Paint Daubs. Now, you'll see straight away with this, it just, even though you think it's making things a bit muddy, like the lines, it just brings everything to life. It's an amazing thing. I only have it on a brush size of 2 and a sharpness of 2. And simple brush type. Just hit OK. Now straight away you can see, especially in here, in the sort of the bumpy areas, it's just give it a bit more of a, it's just brought the whole image. So if you turn it off, especially if you look up here, and the chrome pieces as well. Okay. What I'm also going to do, I'm going to drag this down to create basically a duplicate. I'm going to turn off the daubs. I'm going to come up to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Now I'm having it quite high, about 3 pixels. Okay, and I'm going to change the blend layer to screen. Or you can change it to lighten. Best thing to do is just have a play with some of these, but I'm going to cut, I'm going to bring it right back. 25%. So it's very subtle, it adds a slight bit of, it's almost like one of those romantic haze type effects. Okay. Next we move on to the subsurface shading. I'm going to change the blend type to screen. Now this doesn't really, you'll see it perhaps on the leaves here. On a night shot, on the candle shot, these will really come into effect. If you want to add extra colour there, like extra light, diffuse lighting to brighten the scene up. And the same with the reflections, if you want to bump them a bit. You see look in the mirror there, you'll see it. Okay. Now the ambient occlusion, I'm going to come down to filter, blur, Gaussian blur again, down to 2 pixels. I'm going to change the blend type to overlay. Now straight away you can really see, like if you look in the sink there, when it's off you can't even see basically the bottom of the sink or where this sort of vertical edge is. It's almost like one shade of grey. But as soon as you turn it on you get real good contrast in there. And that's the same everywhere, like in these corners behind, like the shadow behind this pot. And on the walls here, like the back of this glass. It just brings everything to life. Now obviously this is too much, so we're going to come down to the opacity there. We're going to pull it right down. We'll try 50%. And now you can still see in there the difference, like when I turn on, look at the sink there. Just brings everything to life. Even like round these sort of recessed buttons and things here, you'd be surprised how, and the shadows, it's just that's the real scene stealer in my opinion. And it also it brightens up all the sort of the light areas as well. Okay. Now, the last thing to do, we go back to what I was talking about, the depth of field if you do want to add it. Okay, if you go up to one of these LDRs here, and we're going to right click, and I'm just going to, this is when you're finished and you've got to the end, I'm just going to rasterize that layer there. Now I'm going to come up to filter, blur, and I'm going to put it onto lens blur. Now what you can do basically now, within the sort of depth map, the source, you can actually select our depth layer. And if you remember, this is what we actually copied into the extra channels at the start there. Now basically what you click on now, it will basically focus on, so you can click on the tap there. So if I click on the toilet there, you'll see this is going to be sharp, this is going to be blurred. So we'll click on the tab at the back. Now you can see the foreground is blurredness. So you can change how blurred and not things are. So you want to add a bit of subtle blur. Okay, what I'm also going to do, just to test here, so I think that'll make quite a nice. We'll go up to lens blur again. We can make it a bit more extreme. Okay, like that. Now I'm not sure if it's going to be best blurred in the background or the foreground, so we'll do this as a test. Now we'll change the blur, the blend type to screen. Just to give it, that gives it, you know, them sort of soft. You get those sort of romantic-y type photos, like the couples on the wall, all like soft focused. And you can cut that back. Okay, so that's I'm happy with that. So that's the end of our daytime bathroom shot. Then moving over to the candle one. We'll get rid of some of these ones. Same ones as before. Even the alpha we didn't use. Now the ambient occlusion is exactly the same. So if you are rendering different scenes, like we rendered the daytime one, the nighttime one, etc. The things like the depth output, you only need to render on the first one you do. You needn't worry about rendering them each time, because that's the same it's the same information. So I'm just going to do Control A, Control C, come over to channels. Just going to move it into a new channel. And just get rid of that then. Okay, so now we're going to do the same again. To start with, I'm going to right click on the LDR, convert to a smart image, image adjust. We need to do this first, image adjust levels. Now I'm not going to bring this right in, just a wee bit. Smart image filter, artistic, paint daubs. Okay. Now I'm going to bring it down to duplicate it. And just put my Gaussian blur on. Okay, now these other ones, we're going to put this on screen. Now you can see in the candle here, just brightens it up a bit. Diffuse. Screen. Just brightens up again. And this will brighten up the reflections. Okay. So I'm just going to blur that. And then overlay. And the same again, it will bring everything to life. So we go down to about 30% again. Let's just duplicate one of those LDRs. And rasterize the layer and I'll bring it to the top there. Add the lens blur on. Okay, so there's my candle shot finished. Now all these sort of things you can turn on and off, as you see fit. Depends if you want it dark or light. You can always bring down the opacity levels, especially in the ambient occlusion. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial series, and I'll see you back with Polypusher for more in the future. Bye for now.